So I ran to the bathroom. And the whole time I'm just screaming because now I don't know what's happening. You see, I wasn't told what to expect. The toilet bowl was white, it was now crimson. It was just red. So this started from 4, 5, all night into about 2 a.m. And there were chunks. And then you don't know whether to flush or, because that's your baby, right? So I said, we need to have a service. You're in some kind of, what do people normally do? What would people do? And I hated that I didn't have any information. I'm called Denise Kekimuri, but my friends call me Kecho. I am a perinatal bereavement advocate. Basically, I want to see change in how we handle people who lose their babies, couples and women mainly, but also the men. I lead an organization called Vessel Is Me. We offer psychosocial support to bereaved parents and couples dealing with infertility. I am a mother of 3. My firstborn is Kayla, who's 11, going on 40. And my second and thirdborn are angel babies. James died at 7 weeks and 4 days. Kitangaza was born at 8 months and died the same day she was born. They are called angel babies because our belief is that they gained their wings the day that they died, thus making me an angel mom. When I found out I was pregnant, first of all, I took a break. So my firstborn was like 8. So I had her when I was 25. So now I'm married, ready. This is 2016 rather. So 2017, my husband is like, operation. I said, let's do this. So Jan, we conceive. Feb, April. No, Feb, March. I feel queasy, awkward, but my husband, he was like, me, I know my guys. They're inside. They have done their job. So let's go and check. So we go and check, and baby's there. I was like, okay, good. So they're like, okay, so now you have to go, the whole shebang. So this was about 5 weeks, but they were like, it's still too early or stuff like that. But at 5 weeks, you have the bubbles. You hear, the brrr. It's not real movement, but you can feel the bubbles. So I go to see my guy. Now, this guy was also my guy when Kayla was born. So when I reached her, she's like, oh, so excited. Like, okay, go take a scan. We see what's happening. So I go in now to see the doctor. And she's like, okay. So, she's opening up your file. And then, mid-seat, she's like, oh, my God, this pregnancy is not viable. Now, science has words that they don't relate in English. So I was like, it's viable the same in this aspect as it is in Burijo English? Or, so I was like, what do you mean? It's like, oh no, sometimes the pregnancies, they just don't attach. So yeah, this baby, this pregnancy is dead. So now I'm still processing this. She's already giving me. Now there's an option. We can do a D&C. I was like, calm down. What is going on? So she's giving me her number. She's giving me her entire schedule. You know me, I don't work on what. I was like, I can't work here. I can't deal here. So I get out. So when I'm getting out, she gives me a cheat. And I was like, she billed me for giving me bad news. That was the thought in my head. So as I'm running out, because I'm there with my sister now is like my BFF. So as I'm running out, I just hand my sister the papers. So now she's the one who starts reading through and seeing what is on. So she's like, what? Now, me, as soon as I find out I'm pregnant, I name my children. So I named him James. So I was like, they say James is dead. She was like, what? So we ran out. We go into the car park. This is like a little clinic on George Street. So we enter the car and she's like, where do we go? I was like, I don't know, but I don't want to be on this street. So now, most times, like in our family, when we hear bad news, we have, it's like, that sound of UTV when TV had gone off, like it was done. So we both had it now. She's like, I can't hear you. I'm like, neither can I, but I don't want to be here. So she drove and then now drove me home. And my husband was waiting because he was literally like, because I told him I just didn't feel. I was not feeling anything. So that experience was that I didn't know babies die. Do you understand? Like that's how ignorant I was about this whole thing. I knew babies come early and then we go into the NICU and we sort of manage and then we get out. I didn't know that there was something like early pregnancy, miscarriages. It's not something that I'd heard a lot about. So this was me going through it. And it was between me and God. So I told him, he's like, no, maybe you need a second opinion. That's now how Emma Okulo comes in, Dr. Emma. And true to fault, Emma, kindest, nicest. It's like, no, we're going to go through this. You go see the sonographer, what? So we go through all these things. And at the end, it's like, okay, so this pregnancy is really not there, Kecho. So it's too early, so we don't need to do a DNC. So a DNC is basically when they go in and they hoover your baby out of your body. So I was so worried about it because I'd Google, Google will kill you before you even reach the hospital. So this is 2017 now, I think March. It was 7 weeks, 4 days. So he gives me a pill to take. And then I send my husband a message. I'm like, yep, it's true. Da, da, da. He's giving me a pill. He's like, okay, I'm leaving work. Let me meet you home. So it's about midday, between 3 and midday and 3. So we get home. I'm on the balcony. So we have a little chair outside where you can lay down. While I'm there and we're having this conversation, of course, now you have to narrate. What did he say? Boof. So you know your peas, when they come unexpectedly? Now think of all of them coming. Yeah, that's what I felt. And I was like, what the hell? So when I stood up, he's like, yo. I was like, I think this child is terminating himself. So I ran to the bathroom. And the whole time I'm just screaming. Because now, I don't know what's happening. You see, I wasn't told what to expect. But then again, I hadn't yet taken the pill. Because they had said the pill, once you put it in, please go sit, camp at the toilet. Because whatever's coming out, you just need to be there. Don't even try, just get towels, camp there. So I was like, okay. So now I remembered that. So I was like, okay, we're camping now because now we don't need to take the pill. Then I was like, but that might be stupid. What if this is like how they do series, like first season. So I need to maybe check out everything. So I tell him, I'm like, call the doctor and find out if I should still take the pill. So when he calls, he's like, yeah, you have to take the pill either way. Now I knew. I was camping. So this started from 4, 5, all night into about 2 a.m. Yeah. And there were chunks. Like I told myself, okay, so I like telling stories, but I told myself I want to see. I don't even know what I wanted to see. I don't know whether I thought it was going to be like a whole, like a fetus, but it was not. It was chunks of meat. Do you understand? So the toilet bowl was white. It was now crimson. It was just red. And then you don't know whether to flush or, because that's your baby, right? So I said we need to have a service. It was because you don't know what to do. You see, so you're in some kind of, what do people normally do? What would people do? And I hated that I didn't have any information, And so I locked him out. I locked him out of the bathroom, of course, because I was like, listen, this one part of my entire being, I do not want you to witness. So the whole night, when I came out, when I felt like, okay, now I think everything is out. He was outside the door. He's like, I was like, if you want to die, you check that ball. He's like, why would I do that? I said, yeah. So I was like, but I don't want you to flash. Yeah. Because I feel we should have a service. Which was quite, what are we servicing? What is this? It took me, I think, till 7 a.m. to make up my mind whether I wanted to flash or not. But that action, even to just, yeah. I was like, oh, yeah. So when I finally did it, he had gone to work, he went to work. So he called, what my brother is like, did she flash? You know, because you become now mentor. I'm not going to lie to you. From that moment on, I've never been the same. Because the things that, first of all, there's a fight between you and God. Then there's you and your body. You're like, what happened? We had a deal. I've been cramping for like the last 10 years of my life. You could have just held this baby, really. So after that now, the aftercare, because now after, of course, you go for the review, they check, they're like, everything is fine. So I asked Emma, and Emma is like, you know, you can try again. I was like, what? He's like, yeah. You just need to get your ovulation cycle, get your cycle the next time you're ovulating. I said, hey, it's that simple. All right, let me come back. Let me return. Yeah. So I went to see a friend who had had a miscarriage. She's actually one of my closest friends. We grew up together. And she sat me down. She said, this is what you are going to do. We're not going to cry anymore. Okay? We're going to get back on this horse. She gave me ovulation sticks. She said, you pee on them. After the periods have come, then, Kecho, mechanical sex. I didn't even know what mechanical sex was. In my head, I was like, I thought sex is just supposed. She's like, now, when they say hi, that's, you call the person, you tell them, now, come. Lord, oh God, it's not nice. Because it literally becomes mechanical. It's no longer now, I don't know, mapenzi view. No, this is, we have a duty to, there's that outcome here. So let's do this. So yeah, I didn't grieve James because I got pregnant the next month. And then Emma put me on full total bed rest. And now, 8 months down the road, Christmas morning, she decides my water breaks and she decides this is it. This is my due date. I mean, her due date was Jan 25th, so we're like a month. So I was like, oh no, this one will survive. She'll survive. I mean, I had a nephew who was like 6 months and he came out, he's now there, stalwart, very okay. So when I was mourning her death, James's grief overpowered hers. And I realized I didn't acknowledge. And so this time that's why I think I wrote the book, because I was like, if there is anything I'm going to say in my life that I did right, it's that I acknowledged my child. You know, I'm not going to do a bypass, which is what everyone wanted me to do. No, don't talk about your child. But Kecho, it's been a year. You hear those statements. By now you should have another baby. Not so. I was like, why? Why are we not talking? Even her burial, having a proper burial for a baby was a problem. They were just like, about a tubazika. I was like, wow. So I realized even when we're working with mothers, the one thing that we get is cremation. It's a daily request. I even looked at it, I was like, maybe we should just fundraise for a crematorium and we have it and it's a vessel thing because it's needed. People want to know. Like I looked and I was like, okay, if there was a way I could have had James's in like a basin, I could have literally taken them and they do what? Burn them up and I have at least his ashes. But that's the thing. Culture has stopped people. Uganda, if you are still producing, you cannot bury that child. You cannot go to the grave. So there are parents who that point of closure is missing because of culture. It's not only here, even in Zimbabwe, we have a couple of mothers who are like, I've never even been allowed to see. So it's just like a heap of soil. They don't put a headstone. They didn't have a coffin. It was really hard for the whole preparing for her. I was like, but we do it for grown-ups. What's the problem? I used to have so much anger, but now I'm not, because I realized ignorance is like the worst weapon. You know how there's poverty? Ignorance is really bad. So people don't know. Like my family, I remember me and Dora sitting and she said, Kecho, I can't help you through this because I've never gone through this. So we are going to go online and look for support because I couldn't find it in Uganda. So SANS UK, still births and neonatal deaths, It's an organization. We do part of what they do, but it's basically offering help online. And that's, I would stay up chatting with someone. There was always someone to talk to me and help me through. And they'll tell me, around this time, like 3 months after, okay, so now this is what's going to happen. You're going to walk into the places where you went when you were pregnant, and people are going to ask you, where's the baby? You had the baby. And you have to go through that. You have to decide in that moment, am I going to explain is this person worthy of, or am I going to trigger myself all over, and sacrifice myself and just get triggered and see how the day goes? And so I learned trying to explain to people just wastes my time. So I'd be like, fine. And I keep moving. Because it was just too much. And then at some point, I was working with Kayla. We met my hairdresser. Because now then I cut my hair, done everything. She's like, oh my God, you never came back. And I swear, I promise you, I avoided that person for that reason. Because the problem with explaining is seeing that confusion on the person's face. Because now they feel like they shouldn't have asked you. Then they now feel they're in an awkward place and you've put them there. So now you start feeling bad for telling your truth. And I just never liked that feeling. It was, I think, after 1 year and a half when I just got comfortable with telling people, oh yeah, she died and this is what happened and babies died, but now, yeah, we're supporting people. And I continue now, I run into Vessel and what we do and all that. But I've seen mothers sidestep, and it's at that point it's normal because you've not yet even acknowledged it to yourself. Because grief does those things. It does the flashes. So you're like, maybe they stole my baby. Maybe they didn't die. Then now we go into the witchcraft part of it. Then we go into all sorts of maybes and all that. But community, I'll say no. That's why I think I set up Vessel, because I said there is no one, there is nothing here. We are in a vacuum. And yet 1 in 4 women have had a miscarriage, stillbirth, or new. 1 in 4. Here in Africa, I think it's more than 1 in 4 because the resources are very limited. Someone can die because no blood, no milk, ventilators. Like it's not like in the Western world where they have these things, but still, even being precise, babies still die. So community still has to be built. And also now, your family wants you to be better really quickly. So they rush you through the grieving process, which is so annoying because grief needs to be recognized. That's all it does. It's just like, guys, I'm here, respect me, give me my dues, and I bust. Now, the problem we have is we're just forever avoiding her, and she just comes back stronger every time. So one of the things we tell the mothers at Vessel is to acknowledge, honor the process and honor your baby. If it's their anniversary, if it's the day they were born, light a candle, write a letter to them, have a journal, talk to your child. Yes, it's cuckoo, but guess what? In all this, grief is saying, okay, finally, you have accepted now. Yeah. The first thing that happens when you lose a baby is you lose friends. It's automatic. I'm sorry. If you're out there and you're thinking, oh my God, my friends will come back. No. There are people who just can't deal with grief. They can't deal with people who are going through loss. And particularly this one, they don't know what to say, what not to say. So rather than get into that whole kavuyo, they're just like, you know what, I'll find her. But the problem is once they find you, because this is what you're going through, the grieving process, you're going to heal and you will grow out of it and you won't be able to fit back with your friends. It's a good transformation, but then it's bad. It's like, it's good, bad. Yeah. If someone is telling their story, they're not telling you for pity. They're not telling you to gain something out of it. They're telling you because they want you to acknowledge their child, that their child lived. And that's all this is all about. It's once I get that acknowledgement, me, myself, I know it, then you acknowledge it. You know, there's someone who say, oh, I don't like saying your baby's name because I feel like I'm going to remind you. I'm like, because I forget. I'm there and I'm like, Banai, what's my baby's name? It's not. It's a thing that's with you for forever. We recently had a mother, 17 years. Her child would have been 17 years. I looked, I said, God, this thing doesn't go. Like, no, it doesn't. Because you keep, oh, now if they were 17, they would be in school. What would they be doing? What would they be picking? What would she be picking as a course? You know, who would she look like now? And so it's with you. So now managing that is what ideally should be your community. Men's grief has nothing on women's grief. Women's grief is very external. You can see it. We'll cry, we will yell, we will huddle, we will hug. Men's grief is the most silent thing I have ever experienced in my life. Like, I used to look at him and I'm like, you will break. You can't keep this up. At a certain point, you're going to have to break. And he's like, no, I was told to be there for you and Kayla. I said, who done asked you? Me. I didn't ask you. That was not what I asked you for. And he's like, no, this is the only way I know how. And I realized they've not been told any other way. So who's going to sit down and tell him now, Several? You need to take some time off. You need to see a therapist. You need to talk to someone. Who am I going to talk to? Because all the men around you are just there, guma. You have to look after your child. There's no, your child and your wife now need you. You know, stuff like that. And you're like, okay. So he hadn't. And the problem with that is you miss grieving together, right? And that for me was something that I realized. You know, I read a statistic. Up to now, I just keep looking and I'm like, that's too high. 84% of couples that go through pregnancy or infant loss don't make it. I was like, that's too high. That's too high. But then when I was going through it, I was like, I can't understand why it's 84. Because you want your person to grieve like you. They want you to also grieve like them. So there's no middle person here to say, hey, okay, all of you go back to your corners, grieve, and then come and let's talk about this. So you're trying to grieve the loss of your baby, but then now your marriage is literally going in different directions because you're not talking. Communication is key. So what I realized is undealt with emotions. They fester, and things that fester normally just produce gunk. So that's what happened between me and my husband. Now, me and Kayla, we are tight. We're like this. My daughter, and I had read books. I had read books from Harvest Institute, the people who wrote their book. And most of them, we realized, me and Dora, that the break was normally a loss of a sibling, a loss of someone, and the death was not addressed. So I said, I don't want this girl to come and start telling me, oh, I had a sister somewhere, and then no, I was like, no. So even having the funeral, having her see her sister, you know, like, please, we are not going to be there and start guessing over someone told you later on that, you know, you had a sister, no one told you about it, you know? No. You know this happened. We acknowledge them on their birthdays. We light candles. I think the second one, she was like, but you know, if Ketangaza had been here, I would have been throwing a bash. I said, yes. So we had a bash. We had a birthday party for her. Called her cousins, cut cake. The third, we released lanterns, you know, now of her. So Kayla is actually the one who comes up with what to do on her. So she's very aware. James, we started last year, to start acknowledging, because she kept saying, James is really the middle child, just forgotten. In all this, mommy, you just talk about Ketangaza, you don't talk about James. So I had to start now actually talking about it, because I realized I had done a real bypass, like, like he didn't exist. So she's very aware. She actually works with other children, the older children who have lost siblings. So she heads that support group, and that's for her, is her give back to community. There's a bereavement specialist in every hospital who deals with the perinatal side, and they come to you. They make sure you have mementos, which is pictures, the band of the child when they were in. They let you wash the baby. You stay with the baby. There's actually a court that can preserve them until the funeral home comes for the body. You have a chance to pray over the body. This is supposed to be ideal, right? Now, from even how the doctor tells you, right? That bereavement specialist should be in the room with you, with them, because they're going to give you the whole scientific, whatever happened in there. So now this person now engages now with the family, and they help you on till afterwards. Tell you, okay, now if you need support, we're here, but then there's a support group that meets here. They find your location and find you a support group that you can attend. They check in with you. Your doctor should be able to call you after the 6-week review and find out what's happening. There should be someone from that hospital to call and say, how are you? Or pay a visit to you. Ideally, that's what it should be. So we go to one of the hospitals here, which everybody runs to give birth. They say, no, I think our customer care service is taking care of this. They got this. We're like, okay, so if you got this, why do we have over 52 complaints from this particular hospital? You did not care. You didn't give the woman the baby to hold. They actually literally arrested one of the attendants, took the baby away from the mother, like you shouldn't see, because there's already something that nurse or doctor has been taught through religion or culture. So they are not, now they've taken off their professional hats. Now they have gone into omanyi fenga abaganda so now they take the babies away from you. So you don't get those closure points. And even taking a picture of your baby is taboo. The most requested for thing after sleep and food is a picture of my baby. Just to know how they are. Because even if you see them for 2 minutes, your brain in grief, it does erase. Because it's too much for the brain to comprehend. It will start erasing memories. And it starts with first one in. So the last thing you saw. So you will find mothers who can only remember when they were pregnant. They can't remember holding the baby. Becomes one, did I not? And these are things we should be able to document. So we talk to them. We are like, listen, we are training these people. We can place them there in your hospital. Then the question became, who pays for them? I'm like, do you want people to keep coming to your hospital, or you want people to keep running away? No, we'll think about it. Now we are on 64 complaints from this same hospital. Right? Because they rejected our request. So whenever we go around, what we do now is tell them we have support groups. So when they come to us, now we can be their community. But we can't help you within the within the confines of the hospitals, because they already have ways and laws that they're being governed and policies that they've set up. But this Kawan area has no policy. It's just free will. Whatever you feel like. There's sometimes, like me, I won't lie to you, the nurse that I had at night was fantastic. The one of the morning, I was like, are you high? What's the problem with you, you know? And so it also becomes one of those things of, if I've gone through it, then I can relate with you. That's normally how this works. So you find a nurse who really cares for you. And then when you're going, she'll say, Munai, Kati, when you go out there, I'll pray for you. And you're like, this one is with me. But then the others, Ogena Guma, Ojakwa Bulunji. So I'll see you next time when you're pregnant. Yeah? Yeah. You're like, what just happened here? I came pregnant. I'm leaving empty-handed. Say something or don't say anything. Just let me be. So it's non-existent. And that's what we're trying to do now, to place that in. But we have to make, I don't know, as much noise as possible, but also be very strategic about it. So that's how we now narrowed it down to support groups.